Hey guys, it's Mike Monte, one half of Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. And we want to reach out to all the fans out there who have supported our show to say thank you. Thank you for making 2021 one of our best years. And one of our best years was because of Anchor. Anchor, the way that you can have your voice heard. You can be just like us. Record your own podcast. Use the Anchor tools to edit your podcast. Use it on a phone. Use it on your computer. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all with Anchor, they're totally free. So be just like Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh. We're looking together for a great 2022. We've got huge guests coming on board. Oh, yeah. You probably wonder why Jimmy's not here right now. Well, he's prepping for one of the best interviews we're about to have, and we're going to surprise someone with. So hang aboard with us, and don't forget, be like us and use Anchor.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the very first episode of the O Spot with Miss Ona Zee. I'm Timothy Beal, Miss Ona Zee's manager and the moderator for the show. So I want to start you guys off on a backdrop of who she is as a performer. So Miss Ona, let the audience know how you started, where you're from, first of all, and how you got involved in entertainment.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you, Tim. I love you very much.
Thank you.
We've worked very, very hard for a long time on this, so it's a pleasure to be here. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm a native, second generation, if you can believe it. And I started in the business in 88 or 89. And those were the silver years. The gold years were already gone. And it was fantastic. I mean, there was a small group of people, an entourage of people, and we all knew each other, and we had a great time together. We shot in San Francisco because it was illegal to shoot in Los Angeles, as Tim knows. And, you know, I had been a legitimate actress and a model and all that, and I always wanted to experience this. And I had married a man who wanted to be in the adult business. And the only way for him to get in was through a woman. That's the way, you know, men get into the business, is through their girlfriend or their wife. Mm-hmm. So I went to meet the manager, the top manager in the business, Jim South. And he looked at me and he said, I don't know, you know, you might be too old. I was like 30 something. And I said, okay, fine. never mind. I'll figure it out. And just at that moment, a producer walked in, English producer, and he said, "Oh my God, you're perfect to play Joanna Collins and in Dallas." And I said, "Okay." I said, "See, Jim, somebody loves me." And that started me off. And we went to San Francisco and shot for about 6 days. I had never made that much money. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. For a lot of different reasons, which I'll get into later on in the show or other shows as they progress. And that started me off in my career. And I knew instantly that I could be the best at this. I could be really, really good. And I booked a lot. I booked every day. Sometimes I did 3 scenes a day, sometimes 6 scenes a day. And it didn't seem to bother me. I had a lot of sexual energy. And the money got bigger. And after just a few years, I realized that the big money was in production. So I set my sight on that. But in order to get there, I had to dance. All the girls went out and danced on the road. So I danced 30 weeks a year, 5 hours a day. I missed Christmas, birthday, this, that, and the other. But it was the only thing that was important to me was how to get to make my own company. And after several years, it was very tough. Very tough. And I started with a line called, it was Ona Zee Productions. And I started with a bondage line called Learning the Ropes. And that to this day is the best bondage line ever made. And the business grew very quickly. And I ended up, making a lot of money, making a lot of movies, and along the way, really loving it. I had that business for over 25 years, and I quit when, people began cheating, lying. Newcomers would come in and just, sell the tape for like $2. And I couldn't make any more money. So I got out. And in the meantime, I've been working with Tim on this podcast, and we're also writing a book. I'm writing a book about how to get out of the business, because so many women and men have killed themselves instead of trying to get out of the business. I had a plan. I'm pretty sharp. And I had a plan. I said, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I've been in the business 30 years. I'm going to build my business. I'm going to make this amount of money. I'm going to have an annuity. And I do. And I'm going to invest in real estate, which I did and I have done. And I'm going to, write a book, do movies, do some other things that really interest me. And I'm just about there. So with Tim's help, I'm writing a book about how not to kill yourself. You can get out of the business if you want to, but you have to have a plan. And it's hard for most of the women that come in because they're young, they're on drugs, and they don't know what to do. So having said all that, there's a lot more I could say, and I will say, but I'd really like to hear from you if you're out there. If you have questions, if you have comments, if there's something you want to know, I want to talk to you.
So I want to talk about like your very, very beginnings, because a lot of women that were scouted for the adult industry just got into the adult industry. And that was their first experience in front of the camera or behind the camera for that matter. So you were a legitimate model for I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, the Wilhelmina talent agency.
Wilhelmina.
So how did that process go? Like, how were you scouted for that company as a model?
As a child, I was very beautiful. And I became a model very easily. People, it just happened in my arena growing up, and people wanted to take my picture. So I started with Wilhelmina, but then I went to Fran O'Brien, and she booked me almost every single day. And I'm small. So, to be booked in print every day is a lot. I had a contract with NBC. I was thinking about this the other day, and J.C. Penney for shoes. I did a lot of tennis stuff. I was an advocate, tennis player, golf player, swimmer, whatever activity. That's what I like to do. And so how did I get in? Is that what you said?
Well,
I'm losing it.
Did you have family members in the entertainment industry?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And I really think my mother always wanted to be an actress.
Mm-hmm.
So she pushed me in that direction. And then when I was about 20 years old, there used to be in Los Angeles dance clubs, the Daisy, stuff like that. So I used to go dancing every night. And some people from Playboy approached me. And I did some magazine work for Playboy. I also did centerfold for Playboy, but I was a year too young. So they pulled it. But I had already established a great relationship with Playboy. And getting naked wasn't a big deal for me. My first naked scene or sex scene was with Tom Byron. Mm-hmm. And I was used to the camera. I mean, it didn't scare me. I knew what to do, and I've been doing it since I've been 10 or 11 years old, modeling. And we had all these cameramen around, and there was Tom Byron. He was so young, and we had sex, and it was a little scary at first, and then I got into it, and I forgot about everybody that was around. And when I finished, they applauded, which was great. And then the cameraman said, "You've done this before." I said, "No, I've never done it before." "Well, how do you know what to do?" I said, "Because it's natural. You just know what to do. You're having sex, and you have sex like if the camera's not there." And they kept telling me, "No, you've done it before. You've done it before." And honestly, I had never done it before, but I really enjoyed it. And I will tell you that as a teenager, I had been incested. And that promoted me to be in the business and to take control of my own sex life. And that was a great feeling, to take back control and to make a living at it, to get paid for it, and not just to have it taken from me. And the more I did it, the better I liked it. The more money I made, the better I felt about myself. I did a lot of therapy. And that helped me a lot. But that principle had a lot to do with it. And I know most of the women that come in experience the exact same thing. And men experience the exact same thing. So it's an impetus to doing better, making more money, making more movies.
So let's go back to your Playboy photo shoot, because that's interesting. I'm sure it's interesting to a lot of people too. So do you remember anything about your photo shoot?
Yeah, I remember everything. It was in the winter. It was like in February. It was before my 18th birthday. Mm-hmm. My birthday's March 3rd. I was 17, and I had already done some nude modeling. Mm-hmm. And we went up to either Arrowhead or Big Bear, and it was snowing, and I was wearing like a furry thing like they used to do. Mm-hmm. And I was, modeling nude. I mean, legs open and all that stuff for centerfold. And they loved it, and I loved it. And somehow or other, they found out I was 17, and they had to pull them. But they used them later, mm-hmm. everywhere. It was a great disappointment to me. Mm-hmm. Although many years later, I did Centerfold, Penthouse, Hustler, all of those magazines. And I had an opportunity at that time to travel to Africa, Australia for Hustler, and stay at Guccioni's house in New York. So in a way, it really didn't lose that much. When I started making movies, Penthouse, Playboy was the first company who bought them. They bought everything because we had a great relationship. Mm-hmm. So I'm very grateful for that. But they're still around. I mean, they're still in Playboy somewhere. I just didn't get to be centerfold, which was kind of a drag. But, they bought everything I made, which was really, really good.
So you started working for the mainstream talent modeling agency.
when I was 12.
And then the process of being recruited or scouted for Playboy, is that something that you pursued, or
No.
somebody took pictures of you and suggested that you could be in Playboy, or how did that process
From
go?
the agency, one of the agencies, I was, first of all, I'm a really fiery, go get it, A-type person. And I was given a list. In those days, they gave you, if you ever knew, a list of photographers. It was your job to go around and knock on doors and say, hey, I'm Ona. I want to work. You know, call me if something comes up. And I, because I was so aggressive, I got a lot of work. I went day after day after day. And one of the photographers I worked for was someone who was really on the edge, who was doing, I can't say nudie magazines, but some professionally shot girl on girl stuff, really beautiful stuff. And I started working for him, and he recommended me to Playboy. And that's how it got started. And then, you know, I would go to the dance clubs or whatever at night, and a lot of Playboy people were there, and they roped me in. And it was fine because I was really happy to work for Playboy and stuff like that. I did not get an opportunity to go to college, which was fine. I worked. I worked in, you know, retail clothing while I wasn't modeling. And then at 22 or something, I got my real estate license. So I was always working, whether it was modeling, real estate, clothing, whatever it was. But modeling was my favorite. I really had a great time. And I print very well. I look really good in print.
So did you get a chance to go to the actual Playboy Mansion?
Oh, yeah, many
And you
times.
met Hugh Hefner?
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people didn't like him. And I never had any desire to be, you know, his bunny or stay overnight or anything like that. And we were friends. And he appreciated how hard I was working, and the fact that I was, you know, a businesswoman. And he wanted to play with the girls. He wanted those blonde bunnies. And it just wasn't my style. He did ask me if I wanted to work in a club. And I said, no, I really want to do my own thing, but thank you so much for asking me. And he was very nice to me. He, you know, with his pajamas and his shtick and whatever it is that he was doing, it was fine. I mean, I went to the parties, and then when I became successful with my company, I didn't go to the parties, but I stayed in touch with him and let him know, especially when he bought my shows, how much I appreciated that. And the person that he had hired to buy the movies from distributors was told to buy them from me first. And I, you know, wrote him a really nice letter, and I said, I really appreciate that. And he goes, well, you're doing really good work, and I want to support you. And he did. I mean, I made 200 or 300 movies. He bought them all.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a very nice person to me. And a lot of people don't say that.
Tired of that same old breakfast, lunch, and dinner, same old tasting scrambled eggs, burger, that dinner steak, ribs, or pork chops. Why not add a little bit of spice or just a touch of heat to make the difference? Change that scrambled egg with a little bit of Johnny Fabulous's John Cena Sr.'s $1 Million Jalapeno Hot Sauce. Great on burgers, steaks, chops, and those barbecued ribs.
The Monte and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite four-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
In the mood for a freshly roasted cup of coffee? www.offtherailscoffeeroasters.com.
Mansion, producing her first few films for Playboy. being part of the magazine later on, but actually got edited out because of she was 17 years old when she did the photo shoot, which is interesting. What I found out is actually a lot of Playboy centerfolds were actually underage prior to doing their shoots, and then later on their photos came out after they were overage.
Right.
So case in point, I don't know if you knew her or not, but one of the most tragic stories of Playboy is the Dorothy Stratton story.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know if you know her or knew her or had any interaction with her at all. If you want to share any of that, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know Dorothy Stratton. I knew about her.
Mhm.
And it is really a tragic story. Tim, the thing about Dorothy Stratton is that she's not alone, which is why we've talked about writing a book for so long. I mean, Tim is so busy, and I am not as busy. I was, but then I got lung cancer a couple years ago, and so my lovely, beautiful Tim has hung in there with me. A lot of women experience what she did. And it is a tragedy. It's a horrible tragedy. And my hope is that no one else has to experience it.
Right.
And like I was fortunate to know Seika and a lot of those women from the golden era, and they were hard. Those women were hard. And I remember being on the Sally Jesse Raphael show. I don't know if any of you out there remember her, but she was a bitch. And I'm sitting next to Seika, and here I am, like green around the gills. This is like one of my first talk shows. And they had a pitchfork audience, and that is a setup audience where, we're talking about how much we enjoy having sex for a living, and the audience is set up to boo or say horrible things or that we're sluts or whatever we are. And I'm thinking to myself, who are these people? Give us a chance to say something. And Seika is sitting next to me, and she's like, don't say anything. And I'm like, why not? I've got, the big mouth. And so Sally Jesse is berating us. And finally I stood up and I said, what is this about? I thought we were here to talk about, a business that we're in, that we're enjoying.
Right.
And Sally was like, there's no way you can enjoy it. And what do you people think? And I Seika like pulled me down in my chair. And she said, I told you, don't say anything. Because all those shows during that time, I guess that was the early 90s, were set up to make us look really bad. And one of my very, very good friends, who owns Doc Johnson, he said several things. One thing that just stuck with me forever is about being in the making, your own company, is when the bell goes off, you better be there from the beginning to the end. Well, not only was I there from the beginning, but I was there 24/7. And he was right. And I do have, products with him. We'll be opening our own store, with approval of my friend Ron, and having our own thing. But yeah, I mean, Dorothy Stratton she was the first, but she wasn't alone. And it's still prevalent today.
So from the time you're 17 years old, having did your modeling shoot for Playboy, those formative years after that, what was your life like? Were you still modeling with the top modeling agency, Wilhelmina agency, or what was your years from 17 on like?
Well, as I said, I got my real estate license. I am always one to do a lot of things. I was working in retail business. I did very well, but I was also modeling. I did, they used to call it tea room modeling. So you'd go to, used to be Bullock's, Wilshire downtown. And I would, even though I was like 5'5.5" or whatever, I would do, you wear the clothes that you can sell and you'd walk around, whatever. I still did a lot of regular modeling. And I was an artist.
Mhm.
So I went to like a night school at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to draw and paint and do stuff like that. So really big learning years for me. And I didn't get, like I said, I didn't get into adult until I was 33 or 34.
So that's really important for the audience to know out there that at the time that Ona entered into the adult film industry, she was actually the oldest female performer at that time to enter into the business. Everybody else was like really
20.
young, 20, 19, 18. So what was that process? So you're doing feature dancing. Do you just say to yourself one day, I can do this? Like you were a fan of adult films and you wanted to break into that industry, or how was that process?
My ex-husband, Frank, when we got together, we would go down to San Diego for vacation or whatever, and he'd bring all these adult films and we'd watch them. The thing that got me was there were all these films on Canadian dancers.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a dancer
Mhm.
from the time I was a kid. I love to dance. And that got me.
Mhm.
That is what did it. That was the key. And we'd watch these dancers, and I said, that's what I want to do. He said, well, you got to make films and go dance. And I said, well, I'll do whatever I have to do.
Mhm.
And that is the part that I absolutely loved, and so sorry that it's over, because for me, being a dancer, it was wonderful.
Mhm.
And in order to build my company, I had to go out and get my name known. So I had to go all around the country several times.
Mhm.
And there was another girl, I think Ashlyn Gear was older than she said she was. I don't know where she is now. I think she's in Las Vegas. She didn't like me very much. I didn't have anything here or there about her, but I think she felt competitive with me. So, yes, I was probably one of the oldest people ever to get into adult, but that was good
Mhm.
because I kind of made my bones in other places,
Mhm.
and I knew how to handle it. I wasn't terrified. The business can be terrifying because of the producers,
Mhm.
because of the business,
Mhm.
if you know what I mean. And because I was older, I knew how to handle it,
Mhm.
and I learned how to handle it. And then what they did to me, I turned around and did to them. And that was frightening.
So how did you find out that where to contact the producers? Like, was there a publication you could go to at that time to look up adult films that were in production or casting, or how was the
Well,
casting?
they were the Americas, which there were like 7 of them. And I did ask. And when I first went in to interview with one of the production companies, he said to me, I think you're in the wrong place. You don't want a job here. I said, no, I want to be an actor. And he said, oh, okay, let me send you again to Jim South.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, because I didn't know Jim South from a donut.
Right.
So that's when I went over to meet him, and he ended up being a very good friend.
Mm-hmm.
Right before he died, he called me and he said, I want to let you know you're one of the people that I have loved most in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was big. And we became really, really good friends, because I know he thought, oh my God, this woman's too old. She'll never work. And, I have won like 30 awards, from the Hot Door to the AVN. And, one day I won 6 awards one year, and I brought him in and I said, well, now what do you think? And he said, I'm proud of you. I can't believe it. I said, I know you like those 15-year-olds. I said, they give good head dancing. He said, yeah, they do, but you must do something special. I don't know. So, yeah, so that's that.
So when you entered into the business, did you have an agent, or you just were doing the deals yourself?
Jim South.
Okay, Jim South was
You
the
could
agent.
not get
Okay.
around him which way or forwards or backwards. And then when I started producing, I chose my own talent.
Okay.
But a lot of those girls said, no, I'm with Jim South. And I went, fuck, all right. Because he got a pretty penny for them. So instead of trying to get around him, I just called him and said, look, I hired this, and this. What do I owe you?
Mm-hmm.
It was so much easier.
So when you started, were there any rules they applied to you? Like you were going to just do these type of scenes, or were you just entering into the business with the open mind that you were going to be available for all types of scenes?
Yes, I made myself available. And obviously I wasn't going to be a milkmaid of 13, but I knew what I wanted to produce. I wanted to produce real films, and I did a set of film noir that were just gorgeous and like 10 times more expensive than anything that was out. And they sold really well internationally. And I was chosen to do films for acting and for sex, but definitely for acting. And I remember one time John Leslie put me in this film that won all kinds of awards. And he said, I was friends with this makeup artist. And he said, well, we'll just do a little makeup. And John heard it and he blew through the door and he said, not one stitch of makeup on her. And I said, John, please? He said, no, this is a really serious role. It was the film that Humphrey Bogart did. Oh, you would know it. I just saw it. They were on a desert island with, you would know it anyway. And the girl has to sing. And so I had to do all of that and no makeup. And he did this to me twice. And I won for it. But I said to him when I was winning, was it really worth it?
Right.
Really? No. I really like makeup. It wasn't worth it. But the producers, these guys, John Leslie and the other guys, they really, really admired me and respected me. It took a while because it was the old boys club and they didn't really want to let anybody in. But I'll tell you what, Tim, we'd go to the CES show. I'd have my booth and every single one of them, a lot of them would come over and just, shake my hand and give me $100,000. Have a great show. Have a great show. And I'd be like, well, I think it would be better now. Thank you so much.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally get that one. But let's talk about actually the way that films in the adult industry used to be produced. So a lot of people don't realize is that back in Ona's era or genre of films that she was doing, the adult films were actually produced on 35 millimeter film.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of those were on the back of Disney films. So Disney would throw out their films and we would go get them and would film on the back of them. So every once in a while you see Mickey Mouse in the middle of something. You'd be like, Mickey? But eventually we stopped that. They stopped throwing them out in a certain place. Yeah, they were 35 millimeter films. And some of them were $100,000 films.
Right.
My films were $25,000 to $45,000, and they were real films. I mean, they were, women who could act, men who could try and act, solid sex scenes, solid stories that would hold up, that would win awards, that kind of stuff. So, I think people really appreciated that. I mean, to this day, I have hundreds of fans who write to me and say, you did this scene with so-and-so. And you know what, Jesus, I can't fucking remember who it was.
Right.
I did thousands of scenes. I'd like to remember. I can't. And I just try and steer them in a direction. But over the years, we went to beta. Beta, I can't even believe it. And then video. And then DVD. And DVD kind of crushed us. I mean, we got crushed with people who did amateur and et cetera, et cetera. But in the beginning, it was like $99 a tape.
What's interesting is back then the performers could actually act.
Yes.
So they were hired not just for their sex scenes, but also because they could actually act and had some type of background as an actor.
To be able to act.
And a lot of people in the industry then, as opposed to now, actually had some type of real background in the mainstream entertainment industry. And today they don't. They're just recruited from all types of places. The film quality now has really degraded to the point where they're no longer shooting on film. They're using digital. Everything's digitalized now. There's no more stories. There's no more actors. It's just shot basically from the hip with no story. And that's what made those films interesting back then. There was actually a story. So knowing what I know about the industry, like every industry, I've educated myself in every facet of the business, mainstream and non-mainstream. But back then, I know a lot of situations and scenes, they would not use protection.
Oh, well, that's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up because I consider myself the luckiest person on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Never got HIV.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came up, one of our actors, Jonathan, he got AIDS. And he came to me and he said, I'm infected. I said, well, you're done. You're done here.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, well, if you want to produce for me, or hang around or whatever, I'll pay you, what I can pay you. I don't know what that is, a couple $100 a week just to get yourself settled. So I called a meeting. They called me the Norma Ray of porn,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And Norma Ray was a person who fought for rights. There was a movie about her and wouldn't let her work. And that happened to me. There was a huge meeting and I got this guy, Jonathan, to come to the meeting and he said, I have HIV. And I said to everybody, look, we have to wear condoms. And they were like, fuck you, Ona, you know what you're talking about. And I was blackballed for about 3 months. This is before I had my own company.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you guys do what you want to do, but I'm going to start an AIDS mobile. And at that time, I knew this plastic surgeon very well. And he went in with me and we had a mobile unit. And so we would drive around the valley
Mm-hmm.
and we would take AIDS tests. And it grew from there. So to the point where you had to have a clean AIDS test before you shot a movie.
Wow.
I don't remember, like now I know I'm having hip surgery next week, but I have to take a test on Saturday. The surgery's on Monday. So it's 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think it was like before every movie, but I wrote up, I had my lawyer write up a disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not choose to wear condoms, that's on you. You cannot come back to me and sue me.
Right.
If you choose to wear condoms, that's great. And you just sign this line and say, I choose to wear condoms. Anything happens, it breaks or whatever, it's on me, on the person. Mm-hmm. And I had a big bowl of condoms and whatever. And I said, and there used to be for lesbian scenes, the face shields and whatever. Mm-hmm. And finally, they got it. And Sharon Mitchell, who is a horrible person, decided she was going to take over the AIDS wagon.
Wow.
And she pushed me out. And you know what? It was okay as long as people were getting the test. Mm-hmm. And I remember trying to talk to her at one point. She was screaming at me. She's a major drug addict. You have nothing to do with this, go away, whatever. And I was like, okay, Sharon, as long as you're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. But that was a big, big push. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was horrible. And I used to,
We'll be right back.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you, I'll repeat it. Yeah. I used to go for
Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star? Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, BowieHomes.com. That's B-U-I-E Homes.com. Or you can email him at benbuie34@gmail.com. BENBUIE34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor.
Tell him Wolfie sent you. Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
That's right, folks. Canine Corral for all your dog daycare and overnight care. Call 631-549-1544. That's 631-549-1544.
You want to star in your own success? Call QuickCast. www.quickcast.com. 866-7-CAST-NOW. That's 866-7-CAST-NOW. QuickCast.
Star in your own success.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with the O spots. We're talking about Sharon Mitchell and her basically causing issues for you because you wanted to implement condoms and safe practices for adult films.
She wanted to take it over from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't have a problem with that because I was so frighteningly busy trying to get out, 5 movies a week, which for me became impossible. But I mean, like Vivid, they get, 20 movies a week out. I don't know what they do anymore. But I had called her about something. I know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I had a breast infection and I got sepsis. And I was taking so many antibiotics. And the doctor at Cedars was asking me about this situation. And she said, we'd really like some help with this was like at the beginning, with our units downstairs. Could you call the person you know? Okay. I'm sitting in their office. I'm trying to talk to Sharon. And she is, the phone is out to here.
Mm-hmm.
She's screaming at me, you bitch. I'm like, Sharon, these are doctors and they need some information. Can you? I'm not giving you shit. And so I looked at my doctor and I said, this is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
She said, okay, I got it. We'll get it from somewhere else. Now, I don't know if they did or not. I was, after a few months I was healed. I had staph infection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where that went.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that you are still required to have an AIDS test. Yeah, it may not be for every shoot, but I do think that people are still using condoms. I have a very good friend, Raven Touchstone. She's like the best writer in the business, and I think she is aware of what's going on. So I'll find out for next time, and I'll let you know.
So what was the testing policy back then? Like, you came on set, obviously you were already tested.
If you didn't have a test, you didn't work.
Okay.
Not for me.
Okay.
If there were other people who didn't care. But if you didn't have a test, I'm sorry. I was like, I'm really sorry. I know you need the money, but it was always about, I need the money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'll give you $100. You got to get tested.
Mm-hmm.
And I would call the car, the AIDS car, and say, I got somebody here who's not tested. Can you get over here? And they were really busy. They only had the one car at the time. Now they have several mobile cars, but you could also go, he's in Culver City, and get tested right there. It was a short turnaround like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, how can you do this to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with you? And they were drugged up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was wrong with them. They
Mm-hmm.
couldn't think straight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still the problem, the drugs. So, I would be like, I can get a mobile car here in several hours, but I don't know if I can save your scene. I'm sorry. And they were really mad at me. They made me out to be a witch, a bitch, a this, a that, and the other. And a lot of people thought I was just horrid. And I just did what I needed to do to survive.
So you stood for change, and kind of at that time was a negative atmosphere because producers were taking advantage of the performers.
Oh, yeah.
So was that a culmination of you creating your own production company, or how did that end up to where you say, I'm tired of working for other producers and taking advantage of
No,
you?
I wanted to, I always like to work for myself. So I wanted to work for myself. And I finally had made enough money to produce this Learning the Ropes. And man, it swept the nation. It's still the best-selling bondage series in history. And we made enough money to start my own company. And I was tough because people had been very tough on me. And we can get into that next show. You should maybe
How long were you in the business, though, is what I want to know.
Before I started my own
Before you
company.
started your own production company.
I'd like to say at least 4 years.
Okay.
Because the men in that group that we all know about didn't want any women.
Okay.
And I broke through. And it took a long time for them to trust me. And, it was like, don't ever say this, don't ever say that, don't do this, don't do that. And it was very dangerous to speak out. And there was one man who I've already spoken about who said to me, don't ever talk about it. And I said, well, I have no reason to because I know the consequences and the consequences are death. And, I wrote with you, I started to write a book and we sent it off to this literary agent. I don't know how well you knew him, but he was only interested in the business of the business. And I called him back and I said, so you really want to see me get killed? That is your main objective. Then you can write the book and make $1 million.
Right.
I'm not willing to do that.
Exactly. Understand. Your safety is number one always. God, family, and health. And what I love about you is you're spiritual. And what I also love about you is you're wise and you're educated. So when you came into the business, were you kind of looked upon as giving advice to young performers? Because like everybody at that time was way younger.
Yeah, I was looked upon as like someone who was spiritual, wise, older. And I remember I was already sober. So they would do, a lot of these kids would do horrible things. Like, cocaine was my drug of choice. I can still have a drink if I want, but, I'm very spiritual. I choose not to.
Right.
So once in a while, my husband and I, it'll be our anniversary, June 3rd. We may go have Mexican food and have a little margarita, but I'm like an Indian. I can only have like that much and I'm out of it. I'm like passed out under the table. So it's not a big deal to me. So they would have a lot of drugs. And I'd go to my Q line, which, is the mark, and they would run cocaine lines. Go ahead, Ona, won't hurt you.
Wow.
Or they'd put cocaine in their mouth, like, people eat it, and then kiss me. Now, I never thought I had to start my program over because it wasn't my fault. But I'd have to go brush my teeth, wash my mouth out, and start over. And I thought that was just rude. I didn't say yell or scream or whatever. I just took it for what it was, immaturity. And since then, so many of them have come back to me who are now in the program and have said, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, whatever, it's over. It's just, you wouldn't do that to someone now. That part was hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure because everybody in that industry up to that point was being told, you can do this, it won't hurt you, that won't hurt you, you're fine, you can do whatever you want to do. And there was no rule
boundary.
Safeguard. Yeah, no boundaries, no safeguard. Probably, and I know I've talked with you about him before, but probably to me, and I'm 42, so I'm still semi-young, the most famous male performer ever in the adult film industry was John Holmes. And I don't think you ever had any experiences with him.
I didn't. Okay. John was crazy. I'll never forget seeing a film where he actually took a shit on the floor. Did you ever see that one? Oh, God. They were like high on acid or something, and he's in a circle. He's in San Francisco. And, I just thought that, what else could you have done, John?
Right.
And he was a freak like Ron Jeremy. And I just kind of felt bad for him.
Right.
But he was so famous. And I don't know what he did with his money. I don't think he had any money at the end.
No.
Did he?
He spent a lot of it on drugs, a lot of it on just
women.
Yeah. He didn't actually become infected with AIDS
but he did.
The mainstream adult industry. He actually did a gay film and he contracted AIDS from the gay film. So that's how he caught it. It was from the adult industry, but I'm saying it wasn't from the mainstream films in the adult industry. It was the subgenre of gay films that actually contracted AIDS through doing a male scene with another male performer. That's how he contracted AIDS. And there's been movies produced on his life. I mean, Wonderland with Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer played John Holmes in the movie, and then they did Mark Wahlberg, Boogie Nights with Mark Wahlberg, semi-biographical on John Holmes, and Nina Hartley, who was one of your contemporary performers in the industry. She was in that movie. But it's an interesting tale. It's a precautionary tale of, you know, be careful what you ask for. You might just get it.
Right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nina, for some reason, does not like me. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. She is getting older. She's probably in her 60s. And she had to ask her fans for money to have a tumor removed. And the woman should not be working at this point. Mm-hmm. I don't know what she's doing, but she left her husband again and is in another three-way. I don't know, she's a very strange person, but
so the era you specifically were in,
the silver
era of adult films, do you feel that producers were fair in their compensation to the performers, or do you feel that the producers really exploited the performers?
I think, Tim, it really depended on who it was. Like Anthony Spinelli was one of my best friends. When I got in the business, my last name was Zimmerman, and my first husband. And he said to me, "Oh my God, I already love you, but, you know, you can't change your name." I said, "Watch me." Mm-hmm. He said, "Okay, you know, we're going to film this week. So you come up with something. And if I like it, we're on." So I came up with Z. And he said, "Perfect." And I think I shot every film he ever made from that point on with him. And he catered to me. Mm-hmm. He did everything for me. He, his son, and his wife. And they were just typical porno family, but they were wonderful. Now, someone like, what was his name? Someone else, horrible. Mm-hmm. You could be in the middle of a scene. Mm-hmm. You're already making $500 or whatever. I'll think of his name. And he would stop and whisper in your ear, "If you'll do an anal right now, I'll give you $50 more." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are you out of your mind?
Wow.
And this happened. And then Ron Jeremy used to shoot a few films. So I said, "All right, I'll shoot with you one time." So I went to Palm Springs or Vegas, and we drove out in the middle of the desert. When I tell you nothing was there, not even a bottle of water, he paid us $200 to have sex in the sand, no bathroom, no water, nothing. I said, "Ron, this is the last time I'm ever going to see you." I mean, this is, he's getting his comeuppance. This is what he deserves. I mean, those kind of people. And this other guy, his name was John something. He has, I think, mouth cancer.
Okay.
I mean, these guys who thought they were so hot, so wonderful, and whatever, now are suffering.
Right. Did you see, was there a trend ever in the business with certain female talent that would go on self-destruction paths of life? Like, I know they would like contribute in drugging, partying on set, but as far as like, did you see, I guess my question is, was there many girls in the industry that would commit suicide or overdose from drugs or that type of thing?
That's what our book's about.
Right.
And the first one, when I first got in, this woman, darling Megan, she shot herself with a shotgun. She was high. And somehow I'm thinking she comes from a religious family. I don't really remember, but she was very high. And from that point on, more and more women, Anna Mall, was so high. She had gotten a car accident in Vegas and was, disappeared. I mean, more and more and more women kill themselves now.
I remember Savannah had a car accident and disfigured her face. And then I remember hearing the story that she committed suicide. And then I think Cal Jammer was a male performer in the industry. Shot himself.
Because Jill Kelly left him.
Wow.
He was in a phone booth.
So was that kind of a prevalent thing? Like there were adult performers in the business, but they would have relationships within the industry with other performers. Was that a prevalent thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like John Doe was married to this woman, and they were splitting up, and John was crazed on dope, and he hung himself.
Wow.
So, I mean, it can go in all ways, but more and more. And I have this little fellow who's a fan of mine from Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania, and he clues me in because I don't follow it anymore. And he tells me, oh my God, Ona, John Doe just died, or this woman just shot herself, or this girl OD'd, and I mean, it's constant. It's like every 7 to 10 days. And that's when I spoke to you and I said, this book needs to be about how do you get out of the business without committing suicide?
Without being, with basically being unscathed, without permanent mental issues or damage from being exploited or abused or that type of thing. So,
well, they've already been abused.
Yes, they've been abused, but at some point there's a silver lining where they need to say, okay, I've had enough. I respect myself too much to keep going through this.
But that's when you realize you need to get out.
Yeah.
And they can't get to that point. There's something wrong there. I mean, it took me years in therapy to get out. I have to admit that. And part of it is the makeup, the clothes, the jewelry. Like Jenna Jameson, she invested all of her money in diamonds. There's no payoff.
Wow.
I had a $12,000 diamond that I needed to sell at one point. I got $4,000 for it. So what's the payoff?
Right. Exactly.
Why would you do that? So, it's, I would tell them.
Yeah. Don't break again.
Are we?